Let's design a product and also get a risk assessment of your actual AI traffic for free, no strings attached. How does that sound in exchange for your next 20 odd minutes? So, there are two universal truths about AI or artificial intelligence in most enterprises today. Number one, when we ask, are we using AI? The answer is absolutely everywhere. And when you ask, do we know what it is doing? There is never a direct answer, or there is always a wishy washy answer. And today's episode lives in the gap between these two answers. And by the end of it, you and I are going to close that gap on an imaginary whiteboard together. This is the Identity Navigator. I am Rohit. Let's get started. So, quick housekeeping and three things that I want to have a full disclosure about. One, I know the founder we are talking about today. His name is Amit, but nobody paid for this episode. There are no sponsorships, no affiliate link, no discount link. This is 100% my lens, his product. If something is thin, I will tell you it's thin. Two, he's one of us, a career identity guy, consulting trenches, managed services, before he even built this thing. This is not a tourist who discovered governance in a pitch dark last spring. And three, precision. Because there are at least four companies running around with Pulse in the name, including one selling dashboard to the CISOs. Today, I'm talking about Pulse AI from IDM Express. That's the letter IDM, then Express at idmexpress.ai. And it does runtime AI governance. So if you Google the wrong one, that's between you and your search history, right? Okay, so the problem, because the problem is in the episode. So let's assume you have an unread email with the subject evidence request AI usage. And trust me, if you are in cyber or finance, you will get that email one day. Now, the auditor wants three things: everything sent to an AI model that touched customer data this quarter, everything that came back, and why each decision was made. Take a second. Could you produce that? Now, let's not kid ourselves. Both of us know what the answer is. We are amongst friends here, and the answer most likely is a no. You cannot produce that. Now, I researched some of the data to back that claim, and I did get some. IBM's 2025 cost of a data breach report says that 63% of the organizations have no AI governance policy at all. Now, I'm sure between 2025 and now, many more organizations must have a better or at least some form of AI governance policies. And of all the organizations breached through AI, 97% lack basic AI access control. And I'm pretty sure that number hasn't gone down drastically. But 97, even if the number has gone down to let's say 70, that's still 70% lacking basic AI access controls. So let's look at the 2026 edition. Uh, does it make it better? Does it make it worse? So it says the share of security incidents involving shadow AI doubled year over year to 43%. Netscope's 2026 number say nearly half of generative AI users are still on personal unmanaged accounts. Personal accounts with your data in them. So, what do companies actually have in place? Let's inventory the state of the art. System prompts, developer guidelines, a static output filter somebody configured in 2024 and never touched again. And if you're really mature, a point in time quarterly review. So Basically, what most people have are a system prompt and a quarterly review, which is also known as vibes and hopes. Now, why does it fail? Three reasons, and you already know all three because you have lived them. One, system prompts are set at deploy time. Updating them across 40 AI surfaces means 40 release cycles. And under deadline pressures, teams override them. Every control that depends on a developer's patience has the shelf life of a sprint. Every, no exceptions. 2. Filter pattern match a fixed vocabulary with zero idea what's happening in context. So filters are kind of okay, but they check words and nobody's checking meaning. And 3, and this one is in Amit's own word. Once team's control protects exactly one team. No cross application view, no single pane. In identity, we learned this lesson 20 years ago. Point solutions don't scale and don't govern. And that's literally why RF professions exist. And while all that was failing quietly, the clock changed. McKinsey's number, generative AI, went from about a third of organization in 2023 to nearly 80% by 2025, one of the fastest enterprise adoption curve ever measured. And the agents stopped typing and started doing, calling tools, MCP, or maybe sometimes directly, executing actions on their own at machine speed. So, long time listeners, say it with me. If you are 100% certain what your AI agent is doing, it's probably not an agent, it's an RPA script with better marketing. Right? And we have discussed via many forums, but also via the identity uncertainty principle, that there are three things that essentially creates an agent: the memory, which is the context, the brain, which is the LLM, and the hands, which is the tools that it connects to. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is, if you are 100% certain what your AI agent is doing, basically it doesn't have a brain, it's just an RPA script with better marketing. Because agents by themselves, their core behavior is to change, they are non deterministic in nature. So, what are we going to do about it? For a second, let's forget the Pulse AI, which I'm going to talk about in this episode, exists. For the next 10 minutes, let's assume it's just you, me, and a whiteboard. We are going to design AI governance from scratch. And I promise, by the end, you will have invented his product before I name a single feature. Yeah. So I made big claims now. So let me see if I can stay true to them. Okay. So step one choke point. You can't govern what you can't see, and you can't see 40 applications by visiting them one at a time. Where is the one place every AI request passes through? The answer is the network. Put the control between every application and every AI provider, sort of a gateway. And here is the constant that makes or breaks adoption: no code changes. The moment your governance plan starts with every team updates their SDK, you haven't launched a control. You have launched a 2-year migration program with a steering committee and a mascot and a fancy dashboard. So apps keeps calling OpenAI, Anthropic, whatever, exactly like before, and governance happens in transit. So we defined our choke point, the network. What's the step two? Rules that live in one place, not scattered across system prompts. They are centered and hopefully they are versioned. Organize the way people actually think. Like think about what are the type of prompts you would write: your data handling, content, behavior, compliance, and they should be editable live. The policy owner changes a rule, it takes effects everywhere, immediately, no deployment cycle. In Pulse AI, they named their rule set as the Constitution. Well, bold name according to my taste, but I have watched committees take a full quarter to name a shared drive. So, no judgment on my part. That brings me to the step three. Remember, we spoke about the network, then we spoke about the rules. So, what the step three is? Step three is judgment. Because rules alone cannot read languages. Fire the intern and fire the kiln look identical to a keyword filter. So, for anything the deterministic rules cannot settle, you need something that can actually reason about context, which means an AI evaluating AI. And now you have got a new problem. No, actually, you've got an old problem. Who watches the watcher? One model having a bad day cannot become your policy. So you layer it. A fast screen for the obvious stuff, deeper reasoning for context, and an independent check on the verdict before it's final. No single model gets the final word, right? So basically, the thought process is I don't trust any model enough to let it be the only check. And then the step four, verdicts with a spine. So allow and deny isn't enough. Real life is messy. So sometimes the real answer is fix it and let it through. Strip the sensitive bits, forward the rest. That's modified. And sometimes the right answer is a human should look at this. That's pending. A review queue built in. So we have four verdicts: approved, denied, modified, and held for human review. And notice what pending does. It makes human in the loop scale because human reviews the exception, not the fire hose. Manual review of everything is how governance programs die. Manual review of the weird 5% is how they survive, right? And imagine how role based access control, and quarterly user access certifications, when they have scaled, have only scaled when we are certifying the exception rather than everything. That is why most of the teams take out birthright access from their quarterly reviews because they just add noise. It is the same thing over here. We are human in the loop is reviewing the exceptions. And then step five is scrub before it leaves the building. Every prompt gets scanned for personal information before it reaches the provider, redacted automatically. And the redaction itself goes on the record. And then my favorite mechanic, canary tokens, tripwires, trackable markers planted in your sensitive document. If one shows up in a prompt, that request is blocked on the spot and an alarm goes off. Because a tripwire in a prompt means someone or something is feeding the crown jewels to a model. The token themselves stays encrypted, never sent in the clear. It's a classic technique. The things folks popularized it years ago, right? Applied exactly where it now belongs. Now the step six, and this is the step that actually got me. Who is asking? Every request should carry an identity, a signed one per agent, because the marketing chatbot and the finance reconciliation agent should not live under the same policy. And when your ledger says who did something, that's attribution, not archaeology. So register the agents, bind the verdict to the identity. We have had this for human for 20 years. Now do it for non-humans, which, if you have literally heard any episode of the day, is the hill I live on. Okay. So because any tool coming into your ecosystem will not solve all of your AI problems. We will have to do some housekeeping of our own as well. The discipline in development, the discipline in the rollouts. Okay. But here is the part that we all need to hear and may not like it. But identity is not the finish line. Being allowed to act doesn't mean the content is safe. An agent can be fully registered, correctly permissioned, acting completely within its authorized scope, and still, in that single legitimate call, send a customer's critical information to an LLM provider, or leak a secret from a system prompt, or get manipulated by a prompt injection payload hiding in the very documents it's summarizing, right? Or hand back output that quietly contains hallucinated financial advice. Now, none of them is an identity problem. The agent was exactly who it claimed to be, doing exactly what it was allowed to do. The failure is inside the payload, and a system that only checks, is this agent authorized for this action, doesn't look there. That's why the whiteboard, the virtual whiteboard, needs both halves, the identity spine and the judgment layer reading every payload. Remember the identity and certainty principle, and who is asking and what is actually being said. So, step 7 is write everything down. Every request, the verdict, the reasoning, the exact rule that fired, the version of the constitution that was in force at that moment. All of it in one queryable ledger, which filtered by agent, by verdict, by time range, exported, and hand the auditors a report. And when the auditors ask for evidence, it already exists. And as the guy who usually has to go dig through that evidence, that is a life upgrade. And because we are engineers and we love bonus things, so let's have two bonus moves while we are still at it. Let's grade the answers. Every approved response gets scored: relevance, faithfulness, hallucination. So governance stop being just was this allowed and becomes was this any good? You find out which application is confidently making things up, and I know some humans I would like this for. Cache the repeats. Near identical prompts get served from a governed cache instead of a fresh model call. Faster, but most importantly, cheaper. Yes, it could be a governance layer that partially pays for itself. All right, settle down, folks. Okay, so now let's step back and look at the whiteboard. We had choke point, network, constitution, layered judgment, verdicts, which were four, scrubbing, and tripwires. Agent identity plus the payload check that identity alone cannot give you. And then we had the ledger, the grading, and the cache. Congratulations. You have just built Pulse AI. Fortunately for Amit and unfortunately for you, he built it first and maybe with fewer dashboard markers. So, we know what Pulse AI is now. You and I have designed it ourselves. Not that we are going to get any equity, but who is Amit Masand? By his own count, nearly 2 decades in identity and access management. And the public paper trails back the substance. Real roles at recognized IAM shops. He had a speaker slot at Identiverse. He founded IDM Express out of my home state of New Jersey, which has identity security plus round the clock managed services for enterprises. This July, Pulse AI launched under the idmexpress.ai umbrella. alongside a non human identity product called NHIDM. Bootstrapped, or in Amit's words, the business funds the product. So, no outside capital, no board deck theater. So, he's smart, he's resourceful, and most likely he's rich. And his origin story is not a lightning bolt, it's better. It's a pattern. It's something that you and I can relate to. Engagement after engagement. The same gap in every environment he touched. And in his words, identity governance platforms are excellent at telling you who an identity is and what it's allowed to do. None of them tell you what that identity is actually doing right now. Agents with standing access nobody had reviewed in months, quietly taking actions that technically fell inside their permission, but that no human would have approved if anyone had been watching live. His summary line, and honestly, I checked whether he has been reading my rough notes, is governance that knew the identity but was blind to the moment of action. And that is the whole disease. I recently wrote a paper on it as well. Granted versus doing. We audit the grant once a quarter and ignored the doing entirely. So Amit watched that whole for years, client after client, until it was obvious nobody was building the thing that needed to exist. And he did the thing that I implore all of you to do. He built it. Now, the proof was in this June's Identiverse. IDM Express had booth 801, and I was there at the conference. And they presented, or the team presented, Pulse AI in the non human and AI identity pavilion. Amit was on the speaker list. That's when I knew he was at the conference. And the demo in his telling, the system intercepting and evaluating real AI agent traffic live in front of a room full of security professionals. And that is a hostile audience, by the way. We heckle quietly in compliance language. But the demo and the deployment matched the promise. No code changes, so team typically see governed traffic and their first audit records within days of connecting. And both of us know, both you and I know, in enterprise security, days is usually a type. So before I go ahead with what more about Pulse AI and stuff like that, who the competitors are, a market analysis. There is something that I think all of us needs to learn from Amit, and I would all encourage all of you to see if it helps you as well. He has bootstrapped this company, seen a gap, and built the product with his team. What's stopping you? I will just leave it there. Moving on, is Pulse AI alone in that space? Uh, And I would tell you that even if I was asked not to, for the record, nobody asked me to say or not to say it. But I think Gartner files this under AI runtime inspection and enforcement. So Witness AI plays here. Palo Alto's Prisma Airs gateway went GA this summer. Cisco is stitching AI defense to Duo so agent actions tie back to employees. So anybody who tells you nobody else does this is selling. Everyone this space is selling, and that's what makes it a space. So what's the honest edge? Here is what I would actually put on an evaluation sheet. The identity DNA. This was built by an IAM shop. Per agent signed identity isn't a bolt on here, it's the spine. The four verdict model, modified and pending, are where real governance lives, and a built in human review queue is rarer than it should be. Response quality scored in the same ledger as the policy verdict. I have frankly not seen the platforms put was it allowed and was it hallucinating in one record. Go check me on that. It, it deploys self hosted, even fully air gapped, which matters more than vendors admit. And there is a managed service provider model, which is quietly a big deal if you are a regulated mid market shop that buys through partners. Because most tools in this category assume you have a 40% security team, and maybe you don't, and that's fine. Someone can run it for you. And the honest questions founders never answer: who is this not for? If you are running one or two AI integration models, you don't need it yet. A guardrail library will get you by. It's built for the moment you have lost visibility across multiple teams and multiple providers. Compliance, in terms of it is mapped to SOC 2, ISO 2577001, GDPR, the NIST AI RMF, the EU AI Act, and HIPAA. Evidence exports built for the audit cycle and not bolted on after. My one push on this one, and I told it to the team as well, get ISO 42001 on that list. That's a certifiable AI management system standard, and auditors have started asking for it by name. So I've told the team, and I'm telling any other founders in this space, get ISO 42001 on your compliance list if you haven't already. Cost model is pretty standard, or the pricing model I found was pretty standard. Platform fee plus usage. So a base subscription tied to org size and request volume layered on top. So uh, a roadmap, and this is my backyard. Today, Pulse AI governs what an agent says and does. Next on the list, who the agent is, what it's permitted, and just in time access. So just in time for non-humans. And I've been yelling about this frontier for a couple of years now. And somebody is out there paving the road. They're also taking a small number of design partners. So if you want hands-on early access, direct input into what gets built next, the door is open. And by his telling, the phone has started ringing. Big VC names, a big identity governance name, and the word strategic getting thrown around, which for a bootstrapped founder point at one of two endings: a partnership or an early retirement on a beach in Jamaica. Or Jamaica, one of them. One more line that's important to all of us, and the Pulse AI team states it as a matter of fact. It's not training on your data. It evaluates your traffic against your rules. That's the deal. So here is here is the verdict. If you are evaluating AI governance right now, mention this episode and they will run a complimentary risk assessment of your actual AI traffic, not a slide deck, a real look at what's leaving your network. No commitment. Free, I think, is a very good price for a mirror. You can find them at idmexpress.ai. Amit Masand is on LinkedIn, or you can email him at amitmasand at idmexpress.com. This is the Identity Navigator. Just me, you, and a mic. And finally, a straight answer to what's your AI actually doing right now. Until next time, this is Rohit, your identity navigator.